Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make my jellyfish bucket hat. This hat is incredibly simple to make. The only part that might be difficult is the little frills, but I'll show you in depth on how to make all of it. I consider this an easy beginner level tutorial. What you'll need for today's project is a 4mm hook, about a half skein of 2 different kinds of yarn, some scissors, and some measuring tape to make sure you know how big your head is so you can compare it to the bucket as you're making it. If you're going to be following mine exactly, my base for the bucket ends up being about 7.5 inches. I have a pretty big head, so do what you will with that information. Pause now, take screenshots. Here's the written directions, even though as we go through the video, the actual steps will be listed in the upper left-hand corner. Your first step will be to make a magic ring with 10 double crochets on the inside of it. To make a magic ring, it's pretty simple. Wrap it around 2 of your fingers and put your hook beneath the first row on your middle finger to grab the other yarn piece and pull it through. Chain 1 to finish it, and chain an extra afterwards since you'll be doing double crochets. Here, you're just going to insert 10 double crochets into the loop and then pull taut afterwards. Once you've pulled your piece, find the first double crochet you made and slip stitch into it so you can complete the round. You'll chain 2 right afterwards. Now would be a good time to use a stitch marker if you use those. If not, continue as I do. Your next step is to do a double crochet increase into each stitch. You're simply just going to insert your hook once for 1 double crochet, and then you'll do the same a second time. Continue this pattern all the way around, and that will finish your row. Around now, you should have 20 stitches. You can count by the place where your hook is, all the way around to make sure. If your numbers match up, slip stitch into the first double crochet you made and chain 2 more. Your next row, and what will follow for the next bit of time, is to do 1 double crochet, 1 increase, and then repeat. For the next couple rows, you're going to be doing this and adding another double crochet each time. As per usual, you'll find your first double crochet and slip stitch into it, chaining 2 afterwards before we start the next part of the pattern. Like I said, we're going to be continuing like before, this time doing 2 double crochets and then increasing 1. You'll notice you're adding 10 extra double crochets per round after this. That kind of is what makes your circle look so crisp instead of being oval-like or turning into a square. Slip stitch into the first double crochet, chain 2, and then you're ready to continue. Now you're moving on to 3 double crochets and an increase. I also think it's important to remember, if you ever get lost and you can't remember how many double crochets you've done, don't pull your project apart, but pull the individual stitches apart to look and see how many double crochets you've put into each stitch. That way you won't lose your spot. Find your first stitch, double crochet into it, slip stitch, and chain 2. This is where we're going to start our measurements. Depending on if you're making this for a child, an adult, a baby, you might be stopping here or you'll be continuing this pattern with me. I'll be speeding through a bit of this part since it's the same pattern over and over again. Once you hit the double crochet 5, increase 1, that's where I'll be stopping. If you're going for a slightly bigger hat or a slightly smaller hat, you could have stopped a row or 2 before this. You might even stop a row after this, depending on how big your head is. As you can see here, we're hitting the 7.5 inch mark, which is where I stop for mine. The next part is very simple. Chain 2 and double crochet 1 into each and every stitch. This is to make the actual height of the hat, since it'll start to curve in on itself since you're not making the circle any bigger. Once you've reached the desired height, You're starting part 2. The actual bucket is done, and we're going to keep it inside out from this point on. Make sure this is about as long as you want it. For me, it's just around 4 inches. That's about the height that worked. This ends up landing just over my eyebrows, which is perfect for where the trim will be. For your next row, you're going to be picking up where you left off from wherever it was that your last increase row was. For me, this will mean I do 6 double crochets and then increase 1. For you, it would be wherever you last were working. This is to make the trim of the hat come off the face a little bit. It'll end up curling over itself afterwards, but this row specifically is just to make it a little bit bigger. Don't worry if you don't see any curving, that's not for this row. This row is for the curving. You'll be double crocheting 3 times into every stitch. This makes the piece too big to lay flat, and the yarn itself will start to curl up and over, making that little jellyfish crown as they usually have. If you want it more or less frilly, you can simply add or remove the double crochets. I find 3 works the best, but maybe if your hat's a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, you can adjust that the way that feels the most natural. Well, this comes out perfect. The next part is to make the frills that most jellyfish have underneath. This part might be a bit complicated, but you're looking for the bottom of the stitch for the double crochet row you just did. You're going to insert your hook underneath of those 2 stitches, and that's where you'll be pulling through your white yarn. So make a quick slip knot, and then pull through. This will be inserted underneath. Then you'll chain 3. And then you'll do a triple crochet, which is the same as a double crochet with an extra yarn over. You'll be repeating this part twice into each stitch around. It's a little bit time consuming, but it will make your hat elevated to the next level. I'm keeping this part incredibly slow so you have a good visual on how to do it, and then I'll speed it up afterwards so we can move through the rest of this together. The reason we go behind the stitch and not into it is to make a layered effect, sort of like how the jellyfish in the picture had it before. The frills are supposed to be separate from the trim. Once you've finished, you're going to slip stitch into that first triple crochet you made before, pull it through, chain 1, and cut your yarn. You can weave in any of your ends whenever you feel like it, but now the hat itself is complete. At this point, it'll look super cute, and you can flip it right side out. This is where we're going to end up attaching the tentacles afterwards if you want to. The hat does stand alone fine on its own though. If you're making the tentacles, welcome to part 4. We're going for these not spindly ones, but the puffier ones underneath of them. You're going to start with a slip knot and chain 75, or to as long as you want it to be. At this point, you might be able to hear my cat purring. He likes to be involved. But you're going to be taking a second color here and doing 3 double crochets into each of your chains. This will create the same effect that we had on the trim of the hat, but this time it'll end up spinning a bit around itself since the chain is so thin. The more double crochets you add, the spinnier it will be. The less you add, the more it'll just be like little ruffles. I think 3 is the perfect number, just as it was on the trim though. It is totally up to you however many you would like. Just know it's a little bit more time consuming the more you want to add. Take your time here and make sure that you're not skipping any chains as well. Once you're about finished, you'll chain to your last spot, chain 1 extra, and cut your yarn. Pull this through and tuck in your ends whenever you like, but this is how I like to attach it to the hat. Make sure that both of your tentacles are about the same length to attach them. What I like to do here is just choose any 2 points on the side and line them up evenly, taking those long pieces of yarn we left over to sew it into the hat itself. The first part is easy. You're just going to choose anywhere on the hat, making sure that it goes into the inside out part. You do not want this on the outside. You simply pull it through, tie it however you please. I just like to use the hook because I'm too lazy to get a darning needle. Whatever you like, whatever feels the most secure for you is how you'll sew it in together. Just make sure you're not pulling on anything afterwards. Obviously, yarn is fragile. To attach the other side, you simply line them up and do the exact same process over again. They don't have to be perfectly even, but I like them to be as even as I can get them, so I just fold it in half, pull it, and reinsert it into the same spot as one of the little frills was. Again, I just like to use my hook to pull it through and tie a little knot. If you want to tie something more secure or leave a bigger piece of yarn at the end of the tentacles, be my guest, it does not change anything from this point. All you're doing here is making sure that the tentacle is as secured as you want, so when you're wearing the hat, it doesn't come undone. Also worth noting, you can add more than 2 if you like. I think 2 looks cute and very symmetrical, but you can totally add more. And with that, you're done. Please follow me on Instagram, depop, and please like and subscribe the video. I'll make new content about once a week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!